Hello, my name is Darren, and today we're going to talk about next gen. Loads of people are talking about next gen at the minute, and basically I want a piece of the pie. I want some sweet tasting next gen pie. So yeah, basically I'm not any type of insider. I know no knowledge, nothing that isn't already out there at the moment. But I thought I'd do a bit of a video about what my thoughts are, about what I'd like to see next gen, about what I think will probably come next gen. I think it might be quite interesting, if I'm being honest. I think the way that AMD are possibly going could actually be interesting. It might force Nvidia's hand, which could be really interesting. I kind of hope it does. I don't know if maybe what AMD did last generation forced Nvidia's hand a bit with the Super series, and I kind of expected it to. I mean, I think Nvidia have said for quite a while that they kind of tend to go around like power draw, so efficiency. I think efficiency is quite a big thing now with Nvidia, and I think they'll probably do the same next gen. So I think that they're probably likely to stick to a certain power budget with their release, and then it's probably likely that if AMD push them into a situation, they will then release a Super variant, a TI variant, something where they'll basically just push the power budget up a little bit, claw back some performance in doing so, and make themselves a bit more competitive again. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in those terms, but obviously it will take AMD to push them to do it, which is, I don't know, you can kind of take it both ways. Efficiency isn't always a bad thing, but at the same time you feel like they're purposely holding back power that they could have just given you in the first place. So there's kind of two sides to the coin. But I mean, as far as rumours go, so we've got AMD. What are AMD doing? I think AMD are rumoured, so 8800 XT, whether it is obviously named 8800 XT or not, who knows, but if it is that, I think the rumour is something to land somewhere in between 7900 XT, 7900 XTX performance. Improvement on ray tracing. Now, I don't really know where that goes with AMD, because I mean, at the moment you've got AMD. I think it was kind of talked about not long ago, so obviously it was across social media not long ago that AMD were kind of in a bit of a loss, or a loss of earnings, or not as much as what they'd hoped to be, put it that way. So obviously not selling as much as maybe they'd hoped, or I think they were maybe expecting for sales to slow as they are at the moment. I mean, remember AMD aren't obviously just fully relying on desktop GPUs. AMD's huge in the console market, so obviously next gen consoles being talked about, or console refreshes being talked about. But as far as the GPUs go, so your desktop GPU, I think AMD have been, I mean, realistically, what we're talking, the 7900 GRE was kind of the last one of any kind of interest, but I mean, did that come at a point where, I think that probably came at a point where if you'd already bought a 7800 XT, you weren't going to be bothered with it, and long before that was obviously the 7900 XT and the 7900 XTX, so those were, I think those were the first two to get released. Obviously, if you've already have one of those, you're not going for a GRE. So, for obviously new builders, that would obviously, I mean, that's a good value GPU for new builders. But as far as it goes, if you're already on an AMD platform, I'm not sure if it was something that was ever going to sell in huge numbers. And that kind of brings me to the 8800 XT, if that's what it is at launch. If that is their highest proposed GPU, put it that way. So you kind of think, well, the way that AMD were in this recent gen, if you were on something like a 6800 XT from last gen, and that was kind of your comfort zone of the type of series that you were looking into, well, the 7800 XT offered you nothing in the way of, like, realistically. And that's not being kind of shitty, that's just basically saying it's not much. The 7800 XT isn't much on top of a 6800 XT. It certainly is not. You're not going to sell a 6800 XT to buy a 7800 XT, put it that way. Now, where is the 8800 XT going to land with those people? It is an upgrade. Is it an upgrade that they're going to be of interest? I mean, obviously, $600 rumored, so maybe it will. But then you're not. I don't think you're going to be maybe interested in upgrade, unless it really destroys with some ray tracing technology. If you're at 7900 XT or you're at 7900 XTX, like I am, I don't think there's an upgrade path for you. So if AMD have been slow on sales for the last couple of months or however long it might be, and then the next GPU isn't really much of an upgrade for your top 3 tier of GPUs, so those people aren't buying it. I know what kind of situation that kind of leaves them in. I mean, it will be an awesome value GPU for someone below. So, you know, the 7600 XTs or whatever, it'll be a hell of an upgrade for those people. And it could be an awesome GPU for its price, certainly for new builders. But it kind of brings me to think there's only one thing that is on my mind, and I don't know if I could. I mean, I could be so far off, but I don't know. I don't know if AMD are willing to pull a Nvidia, because there was some talk a while back about some AI upscaling, so a improved version of FSR, and it kind of making me think it's gone quiet again. Now, it might release tomorrow, and I kind of hope it does. Or it might release next week, and I kind of hope it does. I'm thinking, do AMD pull a Nvidia and release it with some sort of hardware, you know, some sort of AI cores tied into the 8800, because I mean, effectively that is just pulling a Nvidia, isn't it? But I mean, maybe it's not. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think when this was rumored, there was rumor about there being AI cores on the 7000 series. I'm not sure about 6000 series, but I think there was mention of it being on the 7000 series, and I'll be completely honest, I never really looked into it. So if I'm wrong, I'm happy that I'm wrong, because I'd like to think if there's any improvement to FSR, then everyone's going to get it, or at least the 7000 series owners would get it. Because if it only came to the 8000 series owners, that would be not great, I'm not going to lie. But that would be my only concern with that. Now, I think that GPU's rumoured to have 16 gigabytes, which to me is fine. I think you're safe with that at any resolution. It might be a problem, obviously, for people that want to do it for workloads. For modders, maybe 16 gigabyte might be a little bit wrong, but for generally for your, it's going to be fine for any resolution. So I don't see that being a problem. And I completely understand it. If they want to obviously release a GPU at a good price point, 16 gigabytes, fine, no problem with that. But then that takes me into what Nvidia do, because the thorn in Nvidia's side to me is the 12 gigabyte. And I'm not saying 12 gigabyte is on its whole it's an issue. If you've got a GPU which is a 1440p GPU, so a GPU that isn't really targeted at 4K, and even if it had 16 gigabytes, it would still struggle at 4K, then that's not a problem. But when you release a GPU which is the performance to run at 4K, but is bottlenecked effectively by the fact that it doesn't have enough VRAM, that's when it's a problem. I don't like that. And that'll be interesting to see what Nvidia do. Obviously, Nvidia moving to GDDR7. You can guess it will be more expensive, but there's nothing at the moment, I don't think, saying it will be more expensive. I don't think anyone has actually released the price of GDDR7 at the moment. So we can only kind of speculate on that. It's newer memory. Generally, it becomes more expensive, so it probably will be more expensive. So at the top, if they're 5090, if they stick with the 24 gigabytes of GDR7, it's fine. I think the 5080, I think the 5090 is just rumored to be a huge increase in performance. Okay. I think the 5080 is rumored to be around 4090 performance, or 4090D, so the Chinese version. And I think the reason people are thinking that is it will be released first before the 5090, and it will be released to be available to the Chinese market, obviously, with the 5090, which was the 4090 obviously was basically banned from China, so they had to make the 4090D. So I think a lot of people are obviously thinking that the 5080 will fall within the category of still being available for China. But with GDDR7, I think a lot of people are thinking that'll still be 16 gigabytes, which I have no problem with. But it'll be interesting to see what price it will be, because obviously if 4090s are still available and it's 4090 or slightly under, and it's 16 gigabytes versus the 24 gigabytes, although be it faster, so it'll probably be, I'd imagine it'll be more efficient than a 4090, so less power draw because of the GDDR7. But it'll be interesting to see how they can price that, because if you're too close to a 4090 price, people will just buy a 4090 if they're still available. So that'll be slightly interesting. So you're thinking, okay, so the 5080, 16 gigabytes, GDDR7, around 4090 performance. Okay, that's going to be interesting. What price is it going to be? Surely it has to be below 4090. I'm thinking maybe they'll try and stick to the 1200 that the 4080 released at. Maybe that's why they dropped in that kind of price deduction that they did with the 4080. So they moved that down to 1000. Maybe that was to kind of open up we can go back to the 1200. I don't think that'll be bad. If it's efficient, I think the GDDR7 is rumoured to be very extra performant with ray tracing. So it seems like ray tracing really does rely on memory speeds, which wasn't something I was aware of, but I've seen a few benchmarks about GDDR7, and it seems to be that the rumour is it will have a huge increase in ray tracing performance. So I suppose if you're talking 4090, but with improved ray tracing performance and better efficiency, I don't know, maybe it's around 4080 level of efficiency, so kind of more around the 300 watt. I think that'll be an impressive GPU. If it's over £1,200, I think they're going to have a problem. I think obviously the 5090 is going to be in a category of its own. Again, I think that's just going to be a huge leap over anything that anyone's going to see. So you can expect that to be anywhere between 1500 and 2000, probably closer to 2000. But I think it's what happens below that that will be interesting. So if you're talking going down to 5070, what happens with a 5070 in terms of performance? Because to me the 5070 is going to have to perform somewhere around the 4080, and the 4080 is a pretty good 4K card. They can't do a 5070 at 12 gigabyte. I think that'll be absolute suicide. I'm not going to be impressed with that. I'll happily call NVIDIA out for that, because that will be a very 4K capable card that will be completely bottlenecked by not having enough VRAM. So do they go? I mean, I'd almost think at this point, if they're going to go with 12 gigabyte because it's GDDR7, just go back to the GDDR6X and put on at least 16 gigabytes. In my mind, just go with the slower memory and at least have enough that it can perform at 4K. Effectively, it will just turn out to be a 4080 labeled as a 5070, but I don't see a problem in that. And I think because of what AMD will probably release, which could be a 600 8800 XT with 16 gigabytes of VRAM, it'll be around a similar performance of what a 5070 would be. But if a 5070's got 12 gigabyte, that's going to push everyone to me, that'll push everyone to the AMD GPU, especially if that has an increase in ray tracing performance. So I think that's where it could become quite interesting. Now, whether NVIDIA do a two versions, so a 5070 and a 5070 Ti, or a 5070 Super, or two versions, one being with GDDR7 and one being with GDDR6X, maybe that would be a good idea for them, because maybe some people would want a faster version with lesser VRAM, because all they're interested in is 1440p gaming, and at 12 gigabytes they're happy with the 12 gigabytes of 1440p gaming. I don't know. I don't think a lot of people are particularly enthusiastic for 12 gigabytes at the moment, especially when you get to a GPU around that power target. Below that, I wouldn't particularly worry. But I mean, at the same time, you don't know what's around the corner, so things can change, and they will change. Hopefully nothing stupid. But so yeah, I think that could be quite interesting. Now, as far as CPUs, obviously Intel, new platform. I think Intel's biggest thing, which is obvious to anyone, is efficiency, because they've got so out of hand. I like Intel. I've run Intel for probably a good couple of years. I've gone through kind of the 10 series, 11, 12, I'm on 13. There was no point me going 14. I thought that was kind of Intel's, I'm not falling for that type of thing. So effectively I just overclocked my 13700K, put it on to 5.5. I doubt it will kind of perform much different than a 14700K, to be honest. I'm not going to say it's going to be exactly the same, but I don't think it's going to be far off, and it's certainly not something that's worth it for me. But when you see the kind of, Intel's kind of flagship end of the day release of something like a 14900KS, and it's just, I mean, it's amazing at the, if you look at like the clock speeds and whatever else, but the power target is like, you're just making a mini oven. It's like, don't do it. So that's where, to me, where Intel, obviously they have to improve. I'd like to see them obviously hold on to a platform for longer. AMD are now doing it, well, hopefully, obviously with what AMD did AM4, I think Intel really need to get on top of that, or they're just going to keep losing and losing and losing, and there'll be a point when they won't be able to claw it back anymore. AMD will be the kind of absolute no-brainer option, and once that happens, I think Intel are in trouble. So yeah, Intel have a bit of work on their hands with platform longevity and efficiency. But at the same time, like I said, I like Intel CPUs. They are fast. You know, I mean, even just like desktop use, I can tell the difference between my 13700K and my 7800 X3D quite easily. So obviously in gaming, 7800 X3D is an absolute beast. And that kind of leads to where AMD go next. So we've seen obviously the newer kind of releases, but the non-X3D CPUs, they kind of look alright, depending on price. I don't know. I don't know if they're a huge upgrade for anyone that's already on the previous gen Ryzens, but they're certainly not bad. I know obviously AMD kind of did something a bit dirty with their benchmarks, but which is a bit unlike AMD, which is why it's made me a little bit worried about the whole upscaling thing. But yeah, they do what they do, I suppose. But the X3D processors will be interesting to see when those come out. I hope AMD, because what I really do like about the Ryzen processors is, I don't know, again, I'm not sure if it was by design or if it was something that wasn't particularly thought about, but I like the fact that AMD aren't tying in their best gaming CPU into the best CPU, if you know what I mean. So you don't have to buy the highest core flagship AMD CPU if you want the best gaming CPU. Whereas with Intel, if you want the best gaming CPU, you're buying the top flagship CPU they offer. Now that's not to say that you can't get good gaming performance or close with the i5s or the i7s, but their top performing gaming CPU is the i9. Whereas it was quite nice that AMD are offering a gaming CPU which is their absolute fastest at gaming, which is further down the stack. And it'll be interesting to see if that happens again, or if they can find a way to work around the problems they had with it. I don't know the full technical terms, but obviously it had to move across something to do with the cores, CCD or something along those lines, where if it was on one CCD it was faster, and if it was on two it would slow it down in gaming performance. Something along those lines. I'm sure someone watching will know exactly what I'm talking about and call me dumb for not knowing it, but that's cool. I don't mind. I'm no professional. As I've stated, I'm a consumer. I love tech. I'm interested in tech. When the new tech comes out, I'm going to buy the new tech because I love spending money and I love tech. So yeah, that's kind of my roundup of my thoughts on the next generation. What I kind of hope doesn't happen, what I'd like to see, what I don't want to see. And I'm going to kind of finish the video there in just saying that, like I just said, I love tech, okay? And I want people to kind of understand that. You know, anyone kind of watching this, I want you to understand that I love tech and I love a good product. I don't care what brand name is attached to it. That means nothing to me. I don't have any care for a brand. I know that might sound strange to some people, but I'm not going to say that I will always buy a certain brand and not another brand. I will buy what I think is the best tech. So when I have the choice between whether it be AMD or Nvidia or AMD or Intel, which one I think is the best will be the one I buy. I'm not just going to automatically buy something by brand. Obviously, I have preferences at this moment in time over which brand I prefer. but effectively it's not the brand, it's the tech that that brand is putting out, if you know what I mean. So when I've got the tech in my hands, I don't care what the brand name is attached to that tech. So I want people to kind of understand that. I don't have anything against other people liking other tech, or if the tech that you like is always, you know, attached to a certain brand, that's fine. I hate people arguing over brands. It's so shitty. It really is. It's kind of, I don't get it. It's like you attach yourself so much to a brand, that's going to let you down one time. That's going to let you down big. And when you've been very kind of vocal about it, that's going to come back to haunt you quite bad. I'm going to be honest. So I like all tech. Now, if someone asks me, out of these two things, which one would you buy? I can only give my honest answer. And that doesn't mean that I'll say that my answer is attached to what I like. I'd always ask the questions of, what do you want? How do you play your games? This is what I think might suit you better, and these are my reasons for it. I'm not going to say automatically this because this suits me. That makes no sense. I don't like that. Unless there is a complete outright winner. You know, next generation, if something is a, you know, if Intel release their new platform and it is absolutely no good, it's unstable, it's just a complete and utter mess, and AMD released the new X3D Ryzen chips and they are even better than what this generation is, then you are in a situation where it's a case of, okay, that's it. I cannot recommend the other one. It can't be done. But that doesn't normally happen. There's normally at least one reason why the other one can be, you know, can work better for someone else for a specific reason. So I just want to kind of make that clear, that when I'm talking on this channel and I'm giving my views, it's done as a consumer, it's done with the knowledge, the small amount of knowledge of what I've picked up whilst I've been building PCs and whilst I've been using PCs. I've obviously gone through quite a lot of hardware. I have quite a lot of hardware on hand. You know, if someone really wants to come at me with a question saying this is, you know, crashing or this is this, I'm completely happy to test it for someone and say, okay, this is fine on my system, or if you need a hand with something, I can kind of, you know, I'm happy to talk to people in obviously any type of comments, as long as, well, certainly while I'm extremely small like I am, got a couple of members that are great. They talk, you know, they come and comment on the videos, so awesome to have you guys around. But certainly while I'm small, if anyone obviously has any questions, I can only obviously give my honest answers of the knowledge that I know. I wouldn't want to be in a position where I'd tell people to buy something. I'd happily give someone my suggestion, but at the same time, taking the suggestion of one person before purchasing an expensive purchase doesn't make any sense. At the same time, I'd say be wary of certain people that do that. Certain people that will tell you to buy something when you know they don't even have maybe that certain something and have no experience with those items. There's a lot of people that will, I think, you know, kind of, they'll do things to maybe get clicks, whatever it is. You know, certain subjects and pushing for certain brands maybe can get you somewhere on YouTube. I'm not going down that route because, like I said, I don't care about brands. But anyway, it's probably a good time to leave it because my washing machine's starting to get noisy. If you did watch, fantastic. Please give me a like if you did, because it'd be handy to maybe at least get a couple of likes out of some of the stuff that's getting quite a lot of views, just so I know if I'm actually wasting my time or not, I'll be honest. But yeah, cheers for watching if you did, and I will catch you in the next one.